So now we'll have a chance to share with you our path to building lifelong seafood consumers. And we'll have three speakers come up, and then they'll speak, and we'll have Q&A together afterwards. And so our first speaker is Miss Julia Wilson. She's Vice President for Global Responsibility and Sustainability at Nielsen. Nielsen Cares is one of our supporters, and so we're happy to have Julia here with us today. Thank you.
Okay, hi everybody. Thank you for having me here. It's great to be here. So for those of you who don't know Nielsen, if you have used your smartphone today, bought something online or in a store, or watched any kind of content on any device, that's where Nielsen is. We're tracking consumers, what they're watching, listening to, reading, and so on, as we support industries across retail, consumer packaged goods, media, advertising, and more, and understanding where consumers are and where they're heading next. So what I've got today is a strategy guide around sustainability that we've been sharing with many different clients and industries, and we've got some seafood nuggets in here, but I think it's useful in what Liz was talking about in terms of telling a story that can build trust and authenticity with your consumers. Sustainability is a pathway to growth and value-added relationship with your consumers, and so it's a great opportunity to think about that. So first we'll start with where is the data? So think about the way that you track success or you measure success in your organization and whatever that might look like, and whatever sort of measures or metrics you're using. So whether it's sort of some of these traditional metrics that consumer packaged goods companies and retailers use, put a sustainability lens on that. So who are the consumers, for example, that you're targeting? What are those target demographic groups? What's the sustainability lens on that in terms of understanding what those mothers aged 30 to 50 are looking for, or what those millennials are wanting from your next product or service? So think about putting that sustainability lens on top of whatever metrics or measures you're using for success, and use that in conversation with the teams across your organization that you're partnering with to drive growth. So for an example on that, and I'll share some data throughout, there's a lot of opportunity for growth across the spectrum of what sustainability means. So this is a look at Nielsen Product Insider, which is powered by Label Insight, one of the tools that we use with clients to help them understand what sustainability means. And there's a variety of different big categories that we're tracking, whether it's social responsibility or sustainable seafood, and many, many different sort of subcategories within these. And this is just a snapshot. This is not the total picture, but wanted to give you a sense of what the growth looks like just compared to a year ago in terms of consumers who are gravitating towards these sorts of sustainable, again, across a wide spectrum, product attributes and claims. And this goes beyond the claim to look at what's in the ingredients, what's sort of beyond the marketing to understand what's truly in a product. So you can see that most of these things are up across the board, and that sort of in the category of social responsibility, for example, there are some things that are making an outsized impact, like B Corporation claims. And things look different when you look at different categories, but if you look at sustainable seafood, heartening to see that that's up, I'm sure, for this group. But different categories like sustainable fishing, making an outsized impact compared to the category overall at 27%. So really looking at the total picture, looking at that spectrum of what sustainability means. It's not just the environmental sustainability aspects that it used to be, even 5 or 10 years ago, but it's really widening to encompass a lot of different things across an environmental, social, and governance really range of topics and areas. And so the next strategy point, this is going to feel like an obvious one, but we always feel like we've got to share it with folks, is really kind of zooming out to zoom in on what matters. So we're in an age where consumers are demanding real action, where companies are stepping up to the plate, where governments are taking action, where some of the topics in the sustainability field broadly that used to not be mainstream are now on the democratic debate stage. So we're really in a moment in our society, not just in the US, but globally, where consumers are demanding action, companies are stepping up, and so where do you fit into that? Where does your organization fit into this, and sort of what's that zoomed in area strategically that makes sense for you to be really focused on? So for an example of that, this is just a snapshot from Nielsen's total food view. So I wanted just to give you sort of a thought starter for how you might think about that. So this is just a look at how seafood seasonality attracts consumers. So probably not a surprise to anybody that you see spikes in the Northeast around some holidays throughout the year. Midwest is a little bit flatter. But just in the terms of sustainability, is there a story, and to Liz's point too, is there a story around family connection? Is there a story around what's happening in these parts of the country during those times of the year from a sustainability point of view that you could be talking about with consumers, building throughout the year in an authentic way that could maybe level out some of those spikes, make those spikes go even higher, or sort of create a new interaction with your consumers throughout the year more broadly. Another point of strategy similar to the last one, really thinking about what's unique about your brand. So some of these factors will always be important to consumers, like their budget, their convenience. These things will always matter to consumers. They matter to all of us. But where we're really seeing growth is in this intersection of what's healthy for me and what's healthy for we or for the world. And brands and products that are meeting consumers in that overlap in terms of helping them live that healthy for me and healthy for we lifestyle are really seeing growth with consumers. So my favorite example of this is, or comes from one of my colleagues in our Nielsen innovation business. And she was shopping with her 6-year-old daughter in the grocery store. And as she's going down the aisle looking for eggs, and she's looking for organic eggs because that's something that's important to her. So she's sort of thinking about it from a healthy for me lens, what's best for her and her family. Her 6-year-old daughter asks her if they can buy the kind of eggs where the chickens get to play. And I love that story because her daughter at 6 years old is not articulating this sort of societal shift, but she's really thinking about what's healthy for my community, my world, what is good for the chickens, not just for me and my family. So, finding consumers in that overlap and whatever that means for you and for seafood is where we're really seeing brands and products gaining growth and leverage with consumers. And so another kind of example on that, healthy eating trends have been with us for a long time. Liz touched on this a bit, and they'll continue, but really thinking about how those are driving growth, not just for some of the maybe standard players that you would expect like salmon, but how could that be a narrative that you could work on or adjust or work with consumers to understand, again, in an authentic and real way for some other seafood categories across the store? And how can you maybe shift consumer perceptions, again, in an authentic way to help them see the true value of whatever you're bringing to the marketplace and see how it is not just good for them, but also good for their communities and world. And so I'll bring some other kind of examples just from the broader kind of food and beverage set, because I think it helps shine a light on what we're talking about here. So we've got at Nielsen both the survey kind of view of what are consumers saying. So consumers say that they want companies to do things that make a positive impact on the environment. They say they're willing to pay a premium for products that meet those sort of standards. But we also see purchasing to back that up. And again, it's not the same for every single category or in every single geography or context. So while the spectrum of sustainability that we saw earlier, there's growth across the board generally, you can also see outsized impacts in individual categories. So really drilling down into the seafood category that's most relevant for you or the geography that you're really targeting can help you unlock new growth potential. So for packaged coffee consumers, they're looking at ethical products. And for egg and cheese buyers, they're looking for B Corporation claims. So really thinking about that particular context or category that you're working in can help you find those new opportunities. And that ethical consumerism is really playing with seafood consumers. So these are some stats just about value-add seafood overall, but thinking about what are those sort of options and what's that optionality that you can provide to consumers, and where are you seeing growth today versus where you think you should be seeing growth, and kind of comparing that with your teams in terms of your longer-term game plans, I think can help organizations across the board really tap into new opportunities to grow with consumers and gain new ground as well. So the second to last strategy point, and again, sort of an obvious one, but it's really key to that kind of authenticity and trust building that is core to this work. It's really thinking about what does that end-to-end footprint look like. So in order for you to show up with that kind of sustainability message or authentic brand message with your consumers when they meet you in the store or online or on social media, How can you make sure that all of this is true across your full supply chain, across your employee base, across the decisions that you make in terms of investments with different suppliers or geographies, and really taking a hard look across your full organization to make sure that you're not going to get caught with an issue where something is inauthentic and consumers can't fully trust your brand going forward. And so with that, I love these stats again from Nielsen Product Insider, because I think it highlights too the point I made earlier about how some of these issues are becoming mainstream that used to be sort of not part of the collective consciousness as a whole. So some claims around and attributes of products around some of these environmental sustainability commitments that companies are making to water conservation and renewable energy and others, consumers are gravitating towards products with those attributes. So it's heartening to see that. And it's also, I think, a key message to brands and organizations and companies to really step up our game when it comes to investing in truly what does a sustainable organization look like, and how can we make sure that comes to life, not just in the consumer branding or the consumer engagement with your product, but in how you're, again, bringing that product to life. So the last piece I'll leave you with, again, just to bring home the authentic message and how important that is in terms of making sure that your messaging, your branding, your full end-to-end strategy really resonates with consumers, is a true sustainability message. And again, think about that spectrum of sustainability, what that means for you, what are the metrics that you can put a sustainability lens on to find new growth opportunities. And I think I speak on behalf of the consumers of the world when I say we're glad that companies and industries like seafood are making these sorts of investments, because it means better products, better brands, and a better world for all of us. So thank you very much.